welcome to No Names Tech. My name is Ricky. Today we're going to be testing Cyberpunk 2077. I want to see what the main test bench can do with Cyberpunk 2077. Last week we tested it with the 6th generation test bench, but unfortunately the 6th generation test bench is now gone. I have sold it, so we're not going to be able to test any more games on the 6th generation test bench, but I'm going to do my best to try to build another one. Running on the Ryzen 5 3500X paired with 16 gigabytes of RAM, running on dual channel with DOCP Profile 1 enabled, which brings the memory speed up to 3200 mega transfers per second. And I'm pairing it with an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1070. Here are the specs of the graphics card on Tech Power Ups GPU-Z, if you guys want to check that out. And I'm running it on NVIDIA's 576.52 at the time of recording. I want to try to stay within a similar test to what I did last week, so I can kind of give you guys a comparison between building a system like the 7th gen system, building a system as opposed to building something like this with a 1070. The reason that I feel like that's relevant is because the motherboard and CPU on the 6th gen i7, it's roughly the same price as something like this, as like a 3500X. So even though I do recommend for you to build in an office PC, you have to be careful at this point as far as how old are you going to build. The reason I say that is because a lot of old industrial hardware runs out of older computers. So there's a point in which hardware starts becoming more expensive because there's less of it and they're no longer being made. So in my opinion, at this point in 2025, this is kind of like the meta of the bare minimum that you should be building in terms of if you're going to be building a custom gaming PC. The AM4 platform is a great option. The only problem with the AM4 platform is that if you're going to go for a brand new motherboard, I don't know, something like a B450, B550, like the ones that are available out there for Gigabyte, you're going to have to use a 5000 series CPU in order for it to work. Otherwise, you're going to have to flash the BIOS in order for you to be able to get an older AM4 CPU to run. I'm running it out of an A320 motherboard, which is a pretty low-end motherboard, so it's not really something I would recommend. If you can try to go for something a little bit higher end, that's always better. But if you go for a 300 series motherboard, then a 300 series motherboard would actually come with a BIOS pre-installed for you to be able to use 1000 to a 3000 series AM4 CPU. So an option that you can consider would be something like a 3500X, 2600, 3600. They vary in price, but they're more or less similar in performance. There is quite a bit difference between the 3500X and the 3600, because the 3600 has more threads, but it does operate at the same frequency. So it's something that I definitely want to look into and see if I get a comparison between those two with a budget motherboard like this. AM4 opens up the door to just have multiple upgrade paths. Now, in order for me to keep the test similar to what I've done in the past, I'm gonna run the built-in benchmark with 3 settings. The settings that I've been running on most of my games are the low settings versus the ultra settings, and I'm also comparing it to the Steam Deck settings. And the reason that I do that is because all the systems that I have are all below the price of a Steam Deck. So it's kind of the comparison of what you can get out of a desktop PC compared to having a Steam Deck. So that's kind of what I want to compare it to. An older graphics card like this is not going to be able to do any ray tracing, so that's why I think they kind of compare. So considering the fact that the Steam Deck comes with an AMD APU, so it's something for you to consider. Also, this is my last weekly update for Nonantum Tech. From now on, I'm only going to start testing whenever I have games that I find interesting, but I'm not going to have a set schedule anymore. But I'm always going to be available in the comments if you guys have questions about PC building or settings or optimization or how to get more FPS out of your game. So yeah, so in any case, let's go ahead and get started with the built-in benchmark, and I'm going to show you guys the ones I'm going to show the best result, but I'm going to run all 3 tests and just give you guys the results after we're done. So we're going to get started with the Steam Deck settings, and here we go. pretty great. Definitely a big improvement from the RX 580. I'm gonna try to load back into a previous point in the game where we can drive around and.
Howdy, Night City. Welcome back. My guest tonight is Lieutenant Sarah.
Okay, very good. So now that we're in Night City, I'm gonna go ahead and run a custom benchmark run that would include some driving, especially going around the motorcycle, and then we're gonna go to our apartment, and then and we'll see what kind of results we get in the actual game itself, including some driving. All right, let's take a look. I'm gonna go ahead and start counting, and here we go. All things considered, I think it's pretty great. The game has been well optimized at this point, and by this point, all the original issues with stuttering and stuff like that Cyberpunk is known for are pretty much taken care of. And the game runs really well. As of now, I've been able to successfully run it out of pretty low-end systems. And I mean, the first system that I ran it with the Basside system, you're stretching the definition of running it, because we struggled to reach 30 FPS out of that. But with 81 FPS on the 1070 3500X combination, I think this is definitely where we start moving away from the Steam Deck settings and then just go into the high settings, which is how I usually run the game. In this particular system, I just lock it at 60 and just play like that all day. That way I get a little bit of thermal headroom. I never really like to push my hardware to the limit all the time. But with this, I just kind of want to show you guys the sort of like the best and also worst case scenario with in AM4. The motherboard that I have it's very low end. The motherboard that I have doesn't have the port for an M.2 SSD, so we're running the game out of slower speeds. In spite of that, the performance is pretty respectable, all things considered. And factoring for US prices, this system cost me about $430 to put together. So I think it's a great option to get yourself started in PC building. And the good thing is that this opens up the door for future upgrades that you can kind of do. You can sort of consider a graphics card like the RTX 2060, for example. I believe would run pretty well with this, or an RX 5700 XT. Alright, very good. So that's going to be the run for Cyberpunk out of the 3500X. Thank you so much for watching. So if you're curious about other hardware, you can check out my videos. I've tested multiple combinations of hardware at this point. In any case, thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Bye for now.